When Vladimir Putin pinned Russia's highest medal on a general's chest and declared him a hero of Russia for capturing the city of Kupjansk, Russian state television broadcast the ceremony to millions. 4 days later, Ukraine's president was standing at Kupjansk's city entrance, filming himself less than 2 kilometers from Russian positions. The general who received the medal was reported by Ukrainian sources to have died in the same city he supposedly liberated. This is not just an embarrassing propaganda mistake. According to Latvian military expert Captain Maris Bruza, what happened at Kupjansk reveals the single biggest problem with current peace negotiations. When one side lies about which cities it controls, how can anyone trust a ceasefire agreement? Let me show you exactly what happened, because the timeline makes this even more absurd. November the 20th, 2025. Russia's chief of the general staff, Valery Gerasimov, stood before Vladimir Putin, wearing spotless camouflage. He announced that Russian forces had fully captured Kupjansk. He also claimed they controlled 80% of nearby Vovchansk and 70% of Pokrovsk. Putin, clearly pleased, asked, "So that's it? Completed it all?" The officer replied, "Yes, sir, exactly so. The city is fully under our control." State television broadcast this to the entire country. But here is what was actually happening on the ground. According to Deep State, the Ukrainian intelligence project that tracks territorial control with geolocated footage, most of Kupjansk remained under Ukrainian control. Russian forces had managed small infiltration operations, maybe 40 to 100 personnel using guerrilla tactics. That is not territorial domination. That is a failed assault. And the situation was actually getting worse for Russia. Ukrainian counterattacks had already recaptured 3 villages around Kupjansk. By early December, Ukrainian forces reached the Oskil River north of the city, cutting off land routes for the Russian troops who had infiltrated. Commander Ihor Obolyensky stated that the Russians inside the city had been completely cut off, and for a long time they did not understand what was happening. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense reported more than 200 Russian soldiers encircled, with no way to resupply. So this was not a liberation. It was an encirclement. Therefore, on December the 9th, Russia did what it always does when reality contradicts the narrative. Putin awarded Colonel General Sergey Kuzovlev, the commander responsible for the Kupjansk sector, the Gold Star Medal, Russia's highest military honor for capturing a city that was actually a trap. Then, approximately 4 days later, Ukrainian government sources reported that Kuzovlev was dead. He was reported killed in the same Kupjansk he supposedly liberated. International outlets have not independently confirmed this, but the timing is remarkable. A general receives Russia's highest medal for victory, then dies in the same city while it remains under enemy control. Captain Maris Bruza calls this the most catastrophic propaganda failure of the entire war. But what makes this story really interesting is how Russia's own military bloggers reacted. These are not Ukrainian sources. These are Russian nationalist channels with millions of followers who usually support the war effort. Vweni Osvedomitel, with over 600,000 followers, accused Gerasimov of lying and asked where the 18 Ukrainian battalions he claimed were encircled had disappeared to. Dvar Mayora, with over 1.2 million followers, said that Gerasimov's claims are not accompanied by any proof. Severny Kanal declared that Gerasimov's declaration about the total liberation of Kupjansk just is not true. One channel close to the defense ministry dismissed the official reports as smoke and mirrors, saying they were delivered by men in spotless camouflage reading from a page, and later disproven by Ukrainian footage. Even Russia's own nationalist supporters don't believe their military leadership anymore. This matters because Gerasimov has done this before. The Institute for the Study of War documented that he made similar exaggerated claims about Kupjansk back in August, and Russian military bloggers heavily criticized those claims. The practice of claiming victory before achieving it has destroyed credibility among Russia's own supporters. Therefore, when December 13th arrived and Bloomberg published an article titled "Europe Sees a Trojan Horse for Russia in Trump's Ukraine Plan," European officials were not being paranoid. They were recognizing a pattern. Here is their specific fear. Any United States brokered demilitarized zone would give the Kremlin cover to deploy covert forces in contested areas. Russia might use hybrid tactics, including false flag operations, to undermine security guarantees and manufacture a pretext for renewed invasion. But this is not speculation. It is documented history. After the Minsk Agreements of 2015, Russia technically observed ceasefire terms while maintaining exclusive control of the Ukrainian-Russian border in separatist territories. This allowed continued supply of military equipment, troops, and mercenaries. Fighting never fully stopped. At least 30 Ukrainian servicemen died annually in ceasefire violations. Russia progressively integrated Donetsk and Luhansk into Russian systems. By 2020, Moscow had issued approximately 200,000 passports to residents. By September 2021, Donbass residents were voting in Russian elections. Then, in February 2022, Putin declared the Minsk Agreements no longer existed and launched a full-scale invasion. So when Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov discussed demilitarized zone arrangements on December the 12th, European officials paid very close attention. Ushakov said that it was entirely possible there would not be any troops there, neither Russian nor Ukrainian, but that there would be the Russian National Guard, our police, everything necessary to maintain order. Captain Maris Bruza emphasizes why this is a problem. Rosgvardia, the Russian National Guard, includes heavily militarized units equipped with tanks, armored vehicles, and artillery. The first separate operational designation division alone has around 15,000 personnel. Rosgvardia units participated in the 2022 invasion and have what analysts call a brutal reputation for pacification operations. Therefore, allowing Rosgvardia into a demilitarized zone because they are technically law enforcement rather than military would let Moscow mass an army there in all but name. European leaders responded directly. Former United Kingdom National Security Advisor Lord Peter Ricketts warned that once attention from the United States shifts, Putin could create incidents as pretexts, for example, claiming to protect Russian-speaking populations. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk called certain provisions unacceptable. French President Emmanuel Macron insisted that Ukraine's future cannot be decided without the Ukrainians. But the diplomatic process itself raises questions. Former President Trump's primary negotiator is not a career diplomat. It is Steve Witkoff, a real estate developer and longtime personal friend, with no formal diplomatic experience. Garry Kasparov criticized this approach as resembling a real estate deal to enrich the Trump family and sell Ukraine. Bloomberg revealed transcripts showing Witkoff advising Kremlin officials on how best to get through to Trump, recommending that Putin congratulate and flatter the president. Meanwhile, Ukrainian public opinion measured by the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology shows 75% of Ukrainians reject any peace plan involving withdrawal from Donbass without concrete security guarantees. Only 9% want elections before hostilities end. After Berlin talks on December 14th and 15th, Rustem Umerov stated Ukraine hoped to reach an agreement that will bring us closer to peace. So here is the fundamental problem Captain Maris Bruza identifies. Russia's propaganda apparatus cannot stop lying, even when lies are immediately disprovable. A military leadership that tells Putin they have captured cities they have not captured, then awards medals for imaginary victories, cannot be trusted to honor ceasefire terms. European officials watching Gerasimov claim Kupjansk was captured while Zelensky literally walks through its streets understand something crucial. Any agreement requiring Russia to withdraw forces or respect boundaries will face the same reality gap. The Trojan Horse is not hypothetical. It is the documented pattern of Russian behavior since 2014. And Europeans watching a general receive Russia's highest medal for capturing a city where he would die 4 days later have decided they will not pretend otherwise, regardless of what deals get announced from Washington.